So I've recently watched the first Avengers movie back, basically my first time watching it, and as some of y'all may know, I cosplay the main villain of the movie, Loki, the god of mischief. I've always had a plan to make his famous cheetah tree Scepter, but I've never got around to it. I finally made it, and in this video, I'm going to show you guys how I made this iconic prop come to life and all the details about it. And without further ado, let's get into it. And before we get into the video, I know you guys are wondering where I've been since it's been a month since I last uploaded. Don't get on me. I've just got back from WonderCon and now I'm ready and back to consistently upload these videos. I've just been working hard on this project for the past month for that convention, and finally I get to show it off to you all and show off what I've learned throughout this entire project, because I learned a lot. But I promise y'all, I'm back to finally consistently uploading these videos, and without further ado, let's actually get into the video. This video is going to cover everything. It's going to cover how I printed it, how I soldered it, how I sanded it, how I painted it, and then we might talk about how I assembled it a little bit. There wasn't really much assembly for this, but we will talk about it a little bit, and that's going to be the chapters of how we're going to go through this video. So as we go into the printing, just to give y'all a little brief explanation, this full Loki scepter spans up to 6'3". This is going to be the first full long piece. I had to split it down in half, and at the beginning of the video y'all saw the other piece. So just to give y'all a little brief explanation on how I printed everything out and how I went about doing everything. So jumping into the software, this is going to be the first piece. This Loki scepter is split into 14 different pieces. So I'm not going to cover all those because that'll take way too long. And they're all kind of the same. I printed them the same way. They just have different designs, but they're all the same structurally. So I'm not going to cover all of them, only the most important pieces. Now this is the bottom piece of the scepter. All I did was print it standing up. Always print standing up. You mitigate the amount of filament used and you'll keep the quality. So always print standing up. I printed it standing up, and one thing I've learned is increase your wall line count. I increased my wall line count. Oh my God, the strength of the print stay. You cannot break it if you increase the walls. I've learned that. Infill kind of is obsolete now. You don't really need to use as much infill compared to the walls. As long as your walls are a lot, like 3 to 5, even maybe 7 walls, your print will be so strong that you will even be surprised of it. So always increase the wall line count. That's one thing I learned during this project. I printed it standing up, increased the walls, and I put the infill in there. I used gyroid. Gyroid is easily the best infill to use. I stopped using cubic subdivision, as some of y'all know, because it just was giving me way too many problems. But gyroid has not been giving me problems, so I used gyroid. I put 3 walls in there and it was impossible to break it. I dropped this multiple times, not even a scratch. It's insane what the walls can do. The walls, basically what it does is you go around your print, and it, as you can see here, it basically just puts the walls in the structure, so the internal core of the print is just way stronger. So that's what I did, and that was piece number 1. This is piece number 2. I basically did the exact same thing, printed it standing up, gyroid infill. I copy pasted basically all the same exact settings for every single piece, because as I said, they're all basically duplicates of each other with different designs. So I just copy pasted everything, nothing too crazy here, just going straight up, printed standing up, and that was it. This is the third piece to kind of give you guys an idea of what they all look like. They're all basically the same with different designs and different shapes, but they're all the same structurally. So I just put it in standing up again, copy pasted the settings. It was just a matter of just going and going and going and just mass producing every single piece out. But all of these pieces took 4 hours. All of these pieces took 4 hours each. They all took the exact same time because they're basically the exact same height and shape and everything. Thank God the model was this way, because it was not hard to print these at all. And the K1 Max even cut it down to 3 hours, thank God. So it wasn't really crazy. Printed it standing up, kept the same settings, copy pasted everything throughout the board. Now going towards the top of the scepter, it was basically the same thing. It gets a little bit tricky because it has blades, it has sharper points, so the printer needs to be fine tuned to do those. But as we got up to the top, it has these little designs, printed it standing up, copy pasted the exact same settings for the bottom half of the scepter, and just kept it moving. Took 4 hours. I think I have some b-roll of this. I'll throw it up on the screen if I do. If not, this is how I printed it. Printed standing up, gyroid infill, and look how it just goes straight up on itself, around and around. And that's basically it. This one is a little more tricky. This is number 3 of the scepter. So this is like the very top, the little coil piece. I had some trouble printing this right here. I had to slow my printer down because it would not print this little detail edge right here, and it kept just messing up and giving me spaghetti. I do have a little bit of b-roll. I'll throw it up on the screen as I talk about it. And then this as well, it had a little bit of a curvature, so I had to fine tune a little bit to get these printed, like these pieces printed out. But other than that, it came out beautifully, and it got a little bit tricky going to the top, as you guys will see in the next few clips, but nothing really too crazy. Again, the settings are all copy pasted. The wall line count is increased to 5 on this, I believe, to make this increasingly strong, because I wanted the top to be strong, because all the weight is going to be top heavy once I pull it down and point it. So I wanted the top to be even stronger. It had to be way stronger. Now this is the blade. This is number 2. Again, I needed these to be as strong as possible, so I increased the walls to 5 on this one as well. Nothing too crazy, just printed straight up. All the settings are copy pasted except the walls. That's one thing I've learned a lot on this project, is always increase your wall line count, because it'll make a big difference. So all you cosplayers out there that need something to be very strong and you don't know how to do it with just infill, increase your walls, because it'll make a crazy difference. But all I did was make sure this is standing up, copy pasted the settings, and completed it in about 2 hours. The blades are quicker because they're smaller, but it was nothing really too difficult to do. This is piece number 1 with the blade, the biggest blade piece. I duplicated the last settings from the smaller blade to do this one. It did it the exact same way, printed it standing up, kept the quality, mitigated the amount of filament. It got it done in 2 hours as well, and I just copy pasted everything because they're all basically duplicates. Nothing too crazy, and that's it for this one. Now let's talk about the piece that gave me the most problems, hands down. So this one, I printed it laying flat originally. This is how I had it originally. It did not want to work. This kept messing up, and this kept messing up. As you can see here, the support gets really finite, and if you have a really detailed and great printer, it can probably pull this off. The K1 Max, no matter how much I slowed it down, just could not pull this piece off at all. So all I did to make sure that it actually somehow survives was I flipped it this way, as you can see here, and I had it leaning back a little bit to make sure it could survive. It still didn't work if it slices. Let's see. Come on, slice. Caballed. Okay, so as you can see here, I did it this way, which was not the best way to do it either, but I had to do it some way. This was not leaned back like that, it was forward, but I'm not going to slice it again. But this way, I had all the supports do this. This survived, but I had to sacrifice this back piece. So as you can see here, let me show you guys. This back piece is supposed to be sharp. If you can see there, it's supposed to be sharp, but right here, this cut off right there. I couldn't get that piece to stay sharp at all, so it cut off. But I had to sacrifice an eye for an eye. It was either that piece or it was either the really sharp piece up here that I had to sacrifice. Multiple times did I print this out. It took me multiple jabs at it and multiple attempts. I think I printed this out a total of 8 times. 8 times. Hundreds of grams of filament just wasted because I printed it out multiple times, over and over, and it kept giving me problems. This easily was the hardest piece to print because it's so intricate. If you do have a finite amount or a fine printer to even get this out, it can work for you. For me, it just wouldn't do it, so I had to sacrifice something, and it still came out beautiful, so I don't mind. This was easily the hardest piece of all of it. Now getting into the last piece of the scepter, the actual gemstone of the scepter, I did something very different, which I normally never do, and I printed it with no infill, 0% infill, completely hollowed out. I used the transparent blue filament. Shout out to my brother for giving me that idea to use the blue filament to give it kind of like glowing crystal effect, and I completely hollowed it out. Firstly, I did it with infill, and I didn't really like the way it looked. It looked very low quality, so I hollowed it out and tested it and see if it can do it, and it knocked it out the park. Again, I did the walls, did 3 walls for this. I tried crushing it, did not work. I slammed it on the floor, it did not break, so I used 3 walls. It was very secure, and that was it. This was probably one of my favorite parts of this piece because of the transparent blue filament. I've never printed in transparent filament, and it printed beautifully on the K1 Max. The K1 Max took it like a champ. But the K1 Max took it perfectly and just did it. It just ran it, and it came out beautifully. I have no complaints, and I highly recommend getting some transparent filament. If you need like a glow effect for your props or your cosplays, get some transparent filament. You won't be disappointed. I'm very shocked. This is something I've learned that's new, and I'm very shocked that it worked, and I do not have any complaints. So summarizing all that, what did I learn? I've learned that using walls is way better than using infill. Walls will always have a more structurally sound security with your prints, and it won't sacrifice any of the quality, and it won't make anything a hassle. So always use walls over infill, and always keep the infill lower than the walls. 5 to 7, even 3 walls will work to get your prints way stronger than they usually would be. And I also learned about transparent filament. I've never thought that transparent filament would work. I've always thought it would be like fluke, like fugazi, like it just wouldn't work. But now using transparent filament and actually sending a print with it, it worked beautifully, and I will be using it again. So those are 2 main things I've learned, and I have no complaints at all with this project. I've learned a lot. But without further ado, we're going to get into the sanding portion of it. Let's get it. Actually, that's a lie. We're not going to get into the sanding portion yet. We're actually going to get into the soldering portion. Another skill that I've learned throughout this project. If you're a cosplayer, a prop maker, if you just make cool props, you need to learn soldering. Basically, it's welding plastic together and doing all of that good stuff. You will need it because obviously there's going to be times where you can't print everything in one go. Just like me, I have a big 6'3" scepter. I cannot print that in one go, obviously, so I need to weld things together. So get you a soldering iron. There's a cheap soldering iron. It's $15 off Amazon. This lasted me and my brother 3 years. It went through multiple different projects, multiple different eras. You can see how ruined it is and how messed up and burnt it is because it went through a lot, but it lasts and it's tough as long as you take care of it. All you need to do, get yourself some filament that you're never going to use again. If you know you have a low filament, even if you have a full roll, you can use a full roll as well. Get you filament that you know you're probably never going to use. Get you the soldering iron, crank it up to full, pull the filament, throw it on there and melt it together. It'll melt the plastic together and you don't have to worry about it looking messy because you're going to go out and sand it anyway. So once you get it melted, the plastic down and melted everything together, you're good to go sand. Another thing I've learned during this project is get yourself some E6000 adhesive glue. This melts the plastic. When you have the soldering iron to melt the plastic, you put the E6000 on first. Once you put it on first, you connect it together to make sure it stays in place, and then you solder it together and it adds so much more strength. So soldering irons, once you melt plastic together, if you have a lot of weight in one area, the plastic weld will crack. It will crack no matter what. There's multiple different ways, or you can get lucky and it won't, but 9 times out of 10 the plastic will crack under pressure. If you put the E6000 on first, then you weld it together, you have an extra sense of security and your welds and your prints will not crack. No matter what, the solders will not crack. Now there's a high chance it still will crack, but that E6000 just gives it another layer of security to go with, so when you're doing it, it won't crack and you'll be fine. Now going into the sanding portion, starting it off, I had to go with the 120 grit, dry sanding it. This will mitigate most of the layer lines you can get out. Sometimes you can't really get it, but you can get most of the layer lines out with the 120. Going up from there, just keep working your way up, going with the 150 grit, hit it, sand it, sand it, sand it, sand it. And what do I always say? I haven't said this in a while because I haven't talked about sanding and I missed this. The GOAT 240 return. You hit it with the 240 and you get as much as you can because the 240 will clean up anything that you missed, anything that you already had that you didn't sand. It'll go in it, it'll mitigate those layer lines, and it'll actually destroy the layer lines early before anything even happens. So always use that 240. It is the best sandpaper to use. So once you're done going crazy and sanding with the 240, you want to stop, you want to wash your print, and then you want to bust out Bondo, glazing, and spot putty. Once you do that, you want to evenly spread it across everywhere to get those layer lines filled in. You especially want to space it out on the spaces that you actually soldered and welded together, because you're going to obviously know that you welded it together. There's going to be a big weld mark. So you do want to put a lot of Bondo on that, so the Bondo can just fill it in and fill it over as a new kind of plastic weld and make a new like smooth surface. So you do want to put it on that especially, but you want to evenly coat the Bondo. The Bondo spreads evenly. I always say a tip, use a foam, a piece of foam, a random piece of foam. If you're a crafter, you should have foam laying around. If you don't, you can use your finger, but use a piece of foam. Always wear gloves as well. I always wear gloves. Sometimes I don't wear gloves. Sometimes I like to be messy with it. But you always use a piece of foam because you could evenly spread it along with the foam, or you can get like a sponge or anything. Just get creative with it. Use something to spread it evenly across, but I like to use a piece of foam to get it evenly spread, and the foam you can just toss it after and get another piece. But I use the Bondo, spread the Bondo evenly. Once you're done with the Bondo, sand it back down, starting with the 240. Always get that 240 out. Get the 240, and you're starting with the 240 to get it done with the Bondos on, and keep going up from there. Once you're going up from there, you just want to work your way up. So you want to go to 400, sand, 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 sand. Then you want to go to 600, keep going, sand, sand, sand. Then you want to go to 800, keep going, sand, sand, sand. Then you want to get to 1,000. Now you do have the option of going above 1,000 if you want to make sure your shit is especially smooth and you want to make sure the best smoothness it can be. You can go up to over 1,000. You can go to even 2,000 if you want. I usually just stop at 1,000 and then go to the next segment and hit it with the primer, but you can keep going. After you sand all of this, make sure you always wash your print because the Bondo would leave marks and everything, and it will have a lot of powder and dust. So always wash your prints after. Get a towel. For me, I had to throw it in the bathtub because the Scepter is way too long to even put it out in a sink. So I just threw it in the tub, washed it out, washed everything out. So always make sure you wash your prints before. If you were to paint as you're done with the Bondo, you will have a bunch of powder marks and dust marks, and that will be impossible to get off. Do not learn from me. I did it before. I didn't wash the print and I had to restart the entire thing because it is impossible to get all the dust off once the paint is fully dry. So make sure you wash your print, smooth it down, dry it off, and then go into the painting. And now this is just me showing showing you how I had the weld marks. All of this was welded together. All of this was welded together, as you guys seen in the printing section. You can't even tell where I welded it. If you sand, prime, paint, and do all that in a weld job, you won't be able to see where the solder marks actually are, and that is perfect. That's what you want. You do not want anybody to know where you welded or soldered, because it will just mitigate the entire project. So make sure you sand really well. You spend a lot of time sanding. Do not rush it. And then make sure you put a lot of Bondo on. And when you weld, try to weld as little as possible, but have the strength be there. That's why you have that E6000. So make sure you weld as small as possible and you have that strength be there. Now, last but not least, we got the painting portion of the video. First things first, I grabbed me some filler primer. Filler primer is easily the best primer to use. Now, you could grab yourself 2-in-1 filler and sandable. It allows you, if you have any mistakes, to sand the primer back down and refill it in. But filler primer just covers everything a whole lot better. And thankfully, I did not make any mistakes, so I did not have to need 2-in-1 filler and sandable. I'll put it up on the screen. But filler primer is the way to go. I hit everything with filler primer. Then for all the gold parts, I hit it with a black gloss base coat. Now, you could go white gloss base coat. I have not tested that with the gold. I plan on doing it in the future, but black gloss base coat is easily the best base coat that I've seen for gold. This was not printed in black gloss. This was the black gloss base coat, and as you can see, you get that really good metal shine because it shines double. When you have the gloss on gloss, it'll shine double. It just works like that. I don't know why. Talk to the paint manufacturers, don't talk to me. Then I got me a Rust-Oleum gold. As you know, I'm gonna put this video right here, the Loki accessories. I did the exact same paint code, so you're probably like, oh, this is familiar, he did this before. This paint code is easily the best for all golds. Just a basic Rust-Oleum gold, nothing too crazy. It does its job perfectly. Mixed with the black gloss from Bear. You can get any black gloss you want that you trust and believe. I like Bear because Bear is just a good brand with paints. I use it for multiple different projects. I got me the black gloss, I got me the gold, sprayed that on. As for the blade, I did the same thing, but I did white gloss. You guys know all my Prowler stuff. My Prowler gauntlet is with the white gloss base coat and chrome mix. Bear white gloss, again, you can use any white gloss that you trust and believe in, that you love to use. I like using Bear white gloss, and then for the blade, I use this chrome. Now, you might be wondering, why do you have hand paint here? Let me tell you a little story. Another thing that I've learned, now you have this project here, you will have to mask things off. You will need masking tape. Now, with this masking tape, you have to let the paint dry and cure. Do not be like me. I made the mistake of like, I have time to let it dry and cure and procrastinate. I got all this time. If you have a project done, please do not be like me and get the project done. Do not procrastinate. So what I did, being as stupid as I am, I ripped the tape off, and guess what happened? It ripped all the paint off of the blade. Instead of me letting it dry and cure for a few more days, I also didn't have enough time because WonderCon was the next day. But instead of me letting it dry and cure for the multiple days, I just ripped it straight off, and it ripped the paint straight off of it. So I had to repaint this with this hand paint right here. I just used this hand paint. Thank God I had this hand paint. I highly recommend this hand paint if you need stuff like chrome and you need it to be hand painted instead of spray painted. This is the one I'm always gonna go with. This is the one that's really good. Go with this one. I ripped it off, and thank God I had the hand paint on hand, so I just hand painted it. Anyway, I highly recommend to do that white gloss base coat and the chrome. That is the paint I'm going with every single time, no matter what. If I do need to hand paint something, I have that one, but I don't recommend. I recommend, firstly, the number one thing is to do the white gloss to chrome. I had it beautiful. I had it perfectly set up. Now I learned that I have to let it dry for a long time before I start masking things off. This is just paint 101. You're probably looking at me like, yo, this dude is dumb. Like, what was he doing? What was he thinking? That's just paint 101. But that's what happened with that. That's why the masking tape is here. That's why the hand paint was there, and it still came out beautiful. I have no complaints, but that is it for the painting. All these paint codes that I told you about, I highly recommend you use them. I cannot stress it enough that these paints are beautiful. If you have a different paint code that you know is better, that you think is better, let me know in the comments down below. I'll answer to every comment. If you have any project, use those paints. You will love the results. Finally, touching on it for a little bit of the assembly. All I did for this, as you know, it was split apart. I shoved it straight in, and that's how you got the orb in it. Not really too much of an assembly. It was all assembled before. When I painted it, it was all the way done and assembled. I didn't weld down the middle. Funny story, I ran into a fire hydrant and it actually broke. If you can can see here, it broke in half. But that's not a problem. It broke perfectly because I didn't weld this part. This is actually the middle, so I still have the short version of the Scepter. Y'all probably didn't even tell the difference anyway, but I didn't weld this part. I just let it stay so I can connect it together. Usually for ease of travel, because traveling with a 6'3" Scepter everywhere you go is not ideal. So you would have to split it down the middle, which I did. I had it split down the middle so I can connect it to make it the big version, or I can disconnect it to make the small version, and it was so easy before it broke. But it's broken, things happen, things break. I'm going to make this again. I'm not really having a big deal about it because it is what it is. That's gonna do it for this video. A really long video explaining how I made the iconic Loki cheetah cherry scepter. I've learned a lot during this project. I learned how to solder, learned how to paint better, I learned how to mask, I've learned the walls, the prints, everything I've learned, and I can't wait to incorporate this into future projects and different projects that I do. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Thank you guys so much for supporting me. This is why I've been gone for the past month. Here's some photos for WonderCon right here. Right here for a little reward for anybody who stayed to the end of the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, I can't stress it enough. Without y'all, I wouldn't be motivated to make any of these videos. I wouldn't be motivated to keep going. So thank you guys for supporting me endlessly. And that's gonna do it. As always, have a great rest of your day, your night, whenever y'all motherfuckers is watching this video. And as always, D and B on top. Peace.